unusual reprieve. Bantam Books recruited the striking staff to work on contract to produce an instant book about the Pope's visit. It was a frantic scene. They rented chairs and tables from a catering company and borrowed the bookkeeping department's typewriters. Powered by urns of coffee, trays of sandwiches, and whiskey, they worked all through the day and night of the Pope's visit, and the manuscript and photos were flown to Chicago the following morning. The Pope's journey to the United States had taken 66.5 hours to produce, and was listed in the Guinness Book of World Records as fastest publication. By that time, Pope Paul VI was back at the Vatican. Old news, however fast, is still old. The book was a valiant, impressive effort, but the fact remained that the city's traditional mode of journalism missed an iconic event. The answer to the darkness of local print media was a different medium: television. All three major networks, NBC, ABC, and CBS, carried continuous television coverage of the Pope's visit without commercial interruption. Coverage started in the morning and continued well into the evening. Networks pooled their resources, devoting 85 cameras to the visit, the most collected for reporting a single story. The broadcast results were staggering. Between 100 and 200 million people in the United States, Canada, and Mexico watched some of the events, and 200 million people in Great Britain and Western Europe viewed them by satellite. The Philadelphia Inquirer took note of this grand occasion. The significance of Pope Paul VI's journey is calculable not only in the momentous message of peace he delivered at the United Nations, but in the tremendous outpouring of millions of persons of every race and creed in New York, and the hundreds of millions of every nationality who followed proceedings throughout the day by television or radio around the earth. Never before in the span of time has the attention of so many focused simultaneously in a single direction and on a common goal: peace for mankind. Pope Paul VI was aware of the ecumenical, international, electronic moment. He quoted Romans chapter 1, verse 8 during his homily at Yankee Stadium. "Your faith is proclaimed all over the world." Although liturgical reforms called for most of the service to be spoken in the local vernacular, Paul chose Latin to emphasize the universality of the Mass. Police officers stationed around the track alternated their Latin responses with objurgations to keep the entrance clear for processions. The Old Tongue blended with the New Tongue, with many tongues, as the Apostles' Creed was recited in English, French, Spanish, Russian, and Chinese. The stadium's audience was silent in reverence for much of the Mass. Only a rhythmic beat could be heard over the public address system, likely the sound of the Pope's heart beating through the microphone on his chest. For a few hours, electronic communion thrived worldwide. Less than a decade later, Pope Paul VI appointed a Canadian professor of literature, Marshall McLuhan, to the Pontifical Council for Social Communications. Tall, eclectic, and able to pontificate on most any subject, the Cambridge-educated scholar had shifted from an academic focus on poetry to examinations of pop culture. It seemed like the perfect fit. The television pope would be advised by the electric oracle, the one person who seemed to truly understand the effects of the new electronic media. McLuhan, a Catholic convert, seemed excited at the prospect of advising a church grappling with the results of electronic modernity. But while he would receive notices of meetings in Rome and tried to engage in dialogue with other committee members, it was to no avail. The silence was a source of great disappointment. The darling of secular print and television media was largely ignored by his own church, while that church was grappling with how to remain essential in a rapidly changing world. McLuhan was truly the one for the job. He was erudite, confident, playful, and pious. He was an observer and predictor of trends. In short, he paid attention to the constantly evolving